it starts. It's been warm in here already. You need it, huh? You gonna listen back there, Joey? Sorry, everyone. I had to turn my fan up. Welcome to Mystery Mondays. This is volume number 9. I guess I need to, I've used my computer for a couple of other things lately, so I have it re-angled. My grandson's awake, so he's going to be making sounds in the background here. Please subscribe, hit your like button, and as always, feel free to comment. Today I will be discussing 6 cold cases of missing persons within national parks in the United States, followed by 3 updates to cases I have previously discussed on my blog. These may be cold cases or more recent cases that have new information available at this time, which I'm actually only going to end up discussing 2 of those for reasons I will explain later. Excuse me. Next Monday, November 22nd, I will discuss the final 7 cold cases listed on nps.gov, which the fact that I chose to do so many is causing these videos to be super long. So I'm hoping this one's not going to be real long. The last one was only about 30 minutes, so bear with me. And feel free to skip forward to a particular case that you might be interested in as well. So I already said next Monday, November 22nd, I will discuss the final 7 cold cases listed on nps.gov. As a reminder, the National Park Service considers cold cases to be those of missing persons still not found, as well as accidents or crimes that have yet to be solved and have no active leads. So they're not all necessarily just missing persons cases. I need to really redo the angle of my laptop. Sorry, folks. The first case today is that of David Paul Morrison, who went missing in Yosemite National Park on May 25, 1998. David was a 28-year-old white male who was 5 foot 9 inches tall, weighed about 150 pounds, had brown hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a gray long sleeve UCSC sweatshirt, black pants, Nike running shoes, which it did not say what color the running shoes are, and a black, green, and yellow fanny pack. David was last seen in Yosemite Valley at 5:30 a.m. on May 25, 1998, hiking to Half Dome. nps.gov does not list much information for his case, which is true for the majority of the older missing persons cold cases listed on their website. I'll plan to look into these cases a little bit more in depth, which is why I'm only discussing 2 of the ones that I'm going to discuss at the end, because I found quite a bit of new information on one of those. And then the third one that I was hoping to cover today, I found a whole lot of information on. So I'm going to actually cover that one next week, and I'll probably only do that one after the 7. So I will be covering only those 7 cases because it's the last of those 7 cases. The next case is that of Julie Williams. She was found murdered in Shenandoah National Park on June 1st, 1996 at her campsite, along with Laura Lolly Winans, and I put information about some websites connected to the 2 of them in the description. According to nps.gov, there is currently no suspect in their cases. The cases are listed separately on the website, but I have decided to discuss them together for obvious reasons. Because they were found at the same campsite murdered. I'm not sure if they were a couple or just real good friends, but their cases are obviously connected. At they were found, Julie was 24 years old and Lolly was 26 years old. They were last seen hiking with a golden retriever named Taj on May 24th, 1996. So that was, I believe, a day before they were found. Is that right? Or 4 days? Oh, that was quite a while before they were found. About a week. Sorry about that. Oh, yes, I wrote right here. 8 days before their bodies were found. So they were last seen hiking with their golden retriever named Taj on May the 24th, 1996, which was 8 days before their bodies were found. Their dog was found wandering in the park and turned over to United States Park Rangers near White Oak Canyon Trail. It says searchers then found the women's bodies in their campsite off of the bridle trail near Skyland Resort. And I'm like, well, probably someone from that resort went to their campsite and murdered them, but not necessarily. The National Park Service and the Federal Bureau of Investigation are stated on NPS.gov to be continuing to work on these active, ongoing investigations. And I'm sure anytime a new tip comes in to either department, they look at the tip in connection to the information they already have for this case, which would kind of make it active again, if that makes sense. A statement on NPS.gov reads, quote, "We wish justice for Julie and Lolly and closure for their families. Please share this information and help in our efforts to bring national attention to this investigation. Someone may have a critical piece of information investigators need," end quote. There is information concerning a Federal Bureau of Investigations post, which is the websites that I put in my comment section, or not the comment section, I'm sorry, the description section, about each woman. Those websites are, as I said, they're in the description, but the websites are www.fbi.gov/wanted/seeking-Julie-Ann-Williams/view and www.fbi.gov/wanted/seeking-info/Laura-Winans, I believe is how you pronounce her name, /view. I think I said her last name was also Williams earlier, but that's not correct, obviously. I have posted these links in my blog description section for you, as I said a while ago. The pages have additional information on each of the ladies and pictures of the couple and their dog. As I said, I'm not sure that they're a couple. They may have just been good, close friends. I honestly thought their dog was following whoever killed them, or at least had been following the person or people who killed the dog's owners. So my thought was kind of, maybe the killer was in the general area where the dog was found at one point, because he was probably following people that killed his owners. And that's all the information I have on that case for right now. The next one is the case of Dan Campbell, who was reported missing in Yellowstone National Park on April the 8th, 1991. There's very little information on NPS.gov concerning his case. Dan was a 42-year-old white male who was 5 feet 8 inches tall, had green eyes and brown hair. He is said to have been hiking with an Australian Shepherd dog. He and his dog were dropped off at a trailhead for Hell Roaring Creek. What a name for a creek, right? On April 4th, 1991. And he was reported missing 4 days later. He may have planned to collect elk antlers. Dan was reported missing, as I said, on April 8th, 1991, and no sign of him or his dog has been found, which is so super sad. Perhaps they got in the creek. Now, this is my opinion. Perhaps they got in the creek and were swept away, or Dan got injured and his dog didn't want to leave his side with him being injured, possibly. Cattle-type dogs often prefer to stay with their injured owner rather than seeking help, like some other breeds of dog would. Like a Saint Bernard would most likely go seek help, and a German Shepherd probably would. But the cattle dogs are more like they feel responsible for who they're with, because they're responsible for animals that they help herd. Oh, I guess he's going back to sleep, which is good. Anyway, but yeah, so that's all there is on Dan Campbell's case right now. As I said, I plan to look into each of these a little bit more in depth after I have completed doing all of the cold cases that are listed on the NPS.gov website. So the next one happened on July 5th, 1988. Excuse me. And it's the case of Timothy Tim Barnes. His name seems real familiar to me, but I was a teenager when this happened, or young adult, I guess about 20, 21, I guess actually. So I guess perhaps I just remember some of the stuff from the case, or it's probably on some of the documentaries that I have watched or crime shows and stuff like that. But again, his name is Timothy Tim Barnes. He went missing in Yosemite National Park, was reported missing July 5th, 1988, the day after the 4th of July. Tim was a 25-year-old white male. The majority of these are white males, as I have said before, who was 6'3" tall, weighed about 180 pounds, had dark brown to black hair, which was shoulder length and parted in the middle. Okay. He had dark brown to black straight hair. Sorry, I skipped part of that. He had dark brown to black straight hair, which he wore parted in the middle. His hair was shoulder length. He had a brown mustache, brown eyes, and a small bump or wart on the right side of his nose. Tim was last seen wearing a white t-shirt that had a red circle around a red letter F with a slash through the F. And I wrote, so essentially said no F, but actually it literally said no F, because we know, the circle with the line through is like no smoking, no trespassing, stuff like that. So it's like no F is what the meaning of the shirt was. I was like, somebody might have saw that and thought he had a bad attitude and hurt him because of that or something. I don't know. But he was also wearing gray sweatpants and a worn older pair of white tennis shoes. He was wearing brown framed sunglasses and was carrying a yellow day pack. Timothy was last seen walking north from the Murphy Creek trailhead at, and I'm not sure how this is properly pronounced, but he was last seen walking north from the Murphy Creek trailhead at, it's either Tenaya Lake or Tenaya Lake. It's Tenaya Lake at 9 a.m. on July 5th, 1988. So he was last seen real early in the morning. It is said that he was starting a day hike to Polydomes. I'm guessing that's where he had told people that he was going, either in the park or his family and friends and people such as that. And wow, that actually went pretty fast. The last cold case I'm discussing today is that of Jane Doe. Now, this one's going to take a little while to discuss for reasons you'll see here in a minute. And I looked into a little bit on this, for this week's one. I looked in a little bit into one of the ones for next week because I had skipped ahead some to read some of the other information concerning other missing persons and the national parks. While I was taking a break from the research that I was doing, I looked into some of that and I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. I think these two cases could be connected. So, but yeah, the last case I'm discussing today is that of Jane Doe. She is a female. Jane Doe is a female with no known identity as of yet, which most people know that that's what that means. She has no known identity as of yet. Her remains were found in Yosemite National Park in the Summit Meadow area in the spring of 1983. I believe it was in the spring. It said that they thought that she had been there since possibly the fall of 1981, or like sometime between then and the spring of 1983. So she may have actually been found in the summer. I don't know for sure. It didn't really say. Having read ahead a little, as I said a while ago, on these cold cases, I am wondering if these remains couldn't be those of Stacy Ann Arris, who went missing in Yosemite National Park on July 17, 1981, earlier than the fall of 81. But as I said, the speculated time that she had gone missing was between the fall of 1981 and the spring of 1983. So it could have been Stacy Ann Arras who went missing July 17th of 1981, in my opinion. Stacy was 14 years old, a white female who was 5 foot 5 inches tall and weighed approximately 120 pounds. She had blonde, shoulder length, naturally straight hair. These descriptions seem very similar to me. But back to the information concerning Jane Doe, which is where you will see later on the connection, like these similarities in the descriptions of the two. They they do have a suspect in her case, which is Henry Lee Lucas. I don't know that he was convicted of killing her, but he was a suspect in the Jane Doe case, was Henry Lee Lucas. It appears that it appears authorities never considered that she may have been someone who had been reported missing in the park years earlier because of how Mr. Lucas said he met the woman and part of his description of her. He was convicted of killing 3 women, including his mother. In 1970, he attempted to kidnap a 15-year-old girl. He confessed to killing hundreds of people, but authorities only ever found proof of the 3 he was charged with. And my thought is, if he did kill hundreds of people, I wouldn't trust his word on how he met anyone, what that person looked like, or what they were wearing when he met or killed them. And he didn't give much of a description of what she was wearing either. Sorry, Joey, I know you're trying to sleep. I want people to be able to hear me anyway. But yeah, so I'm like, I would not trust his word. I mean, I know psychopaths and some sociopaths they're real keen on, oh, I remember every detail of everything I did to any person. And I don't think that's always necessarily the case, especially in this guy's case. One of the women he was convicted of murdering was his own mother, whom he was convicted of murdering in 1960. And I don't recall, I guess I'm going to go ahead and read what I have here and see if I made a comment about this. I said, luckily for the public, after being paroled twice, he was imprisoned in 1983 and died in prison in 2001 from natural causes. So what I was going to say was he was arrested in 1960 for killing his own mother. He was released in 1970, which was when he attempted to kidnap the 15-year-old girl. He was then arrested for that, put back into prison where he stayed for only 5 years. Had he kidnapped that girl, I'm sure he would have killed her, is my point, So I don't know why they kept letting this guy out of prison. He'd already killed one person. But anyway, I'm kind of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth type person myself. So Jane Doe's partial remains were found in Yosemite National Park's Summit Meadow along Glacier Point Road in 1983. It was determined she was a victim of homicide. Special agents with the National Park Service Investigative Services Branch, or ISB, have been working with multiple laboratories and agencies to identify this victim. So I'm sure they probably did some DNA and tried to find out if she was possibly Stacy Ann Arras. I would think that they would have. I mean, he tried to kidnap a 15-year-old girl, so to me it would make sense that he would kidnap and murder a 14-year-old girl that was by herself in a forest. I'm just saying. But yes, so they have been trying to identify the victim. A forensic anthropology exam and CT scan, what we call a CAT scan, of the victim's skull helped forensic artists create a digital facial reconstruction of how she may have looked. They had no jawbones to use for the facial reconstruction, though. So odds are the image is similar, but not an exact image of her, because I was looking at the picture of Jane Doe and going back and looking at the picture of Stacey Ann Arras and going, well, their chins are totally completely different. And they made the Jane Doe have like a kind of a dominant type looking chin and jawline. And I'm like, so I guess it's probably not her. And then when I read there was no jaw bones that were used in the reconstruction, the facial reconstruction, I was like, so it could possibly be her. Anyway, forensic anthropologists believe Jane Doe was at least in her late teens. So they're thinking that she's someone who was older than Stacey Ann was, for one thing. But they also believe that she could have been as old as 30. When Lucas, the suspect in her case, was interviewed in the 1980s, he had information about her murder that had not been made public and could have only been known by the person who killed her, which is what I was saying when people were all like, well, why are they not saying exactly how Gabby Petito was murdered? They want they want to catch the person by them knowing the information that nobody else knows. That's how they catch killers a lot of the time. Lucas claimed he had picked Jane Doe up hitchhiking on Highway 41 between Fresno, California, and Yosemite National Park in the early 1980s. He also claimed the victim was 5 foot 5 inches tall to 5 foot 6 inches tall. I'm like, you were pretty spot on how tall you think she is, right? With long, straight blonde to light brown hair. And this is what I'm saying. Stacey Ann Arras had shoulder length straight blonde hair, which sometimes she curled, but it was naturally straight shoulder length hair. And he's saying she's 5 foot 5 to 5 foot 6 inches tall. Stacey Ann was 5 foot 5. She had long, straight blonde to light brown hair. Stacey Ann had shoulder length, which he might have considered long, blonde, naturally straight hair. And he did not mention her eye color, which I found to be kind of odd. He claimed that she weighed about 100 to 125 pounds. And I'm like, so you have like 25 pounds difference in her weight, yet only 1 inch difference in her height. I found that to be very odd, unless perhaps he was about that same height. And he said that she wore silver rings on both of her hands. And he doesn't appear to have mentioned how many rings she was wearing on each hand or described anything else that she was wearing, which I found to be very odd. When he supposedly picked her up, he didn't describe anything else that she was wearing. And I find it odd that he seemed to think he knew her height so well that gave a 25-pound spread for her weight, as I said. I'm very curious what the forensic anthropologist determined her height and weight to be, or if there weren't enough remains recovered to determine those factors. And if there weren't, it's possible that somewhere down the road they will recover more remains in that area that they could possibly use to help with that information. And I'm going, I know it had been a couple of years when the remains were found, but like, can they use bone marrow to do DNA testing? I don't even know. Would there be bone marrow in there 2.5 years after someone went missing and got found? Like, I don't know. So I just don't know that stuff for a fact. And I made a note. These remains, the remains of Jane Doe, as I said, were found in the Summit Meadow along Glacier Point Road in 1983. Stacey Ann Arras was last seen near the Sunrise High Sierra camp, where she started a 1.5-mile hike along a trail to Sunrise Lakes. She was last seen by the mule ride guide who had taken them to the camp from the corral. He was at the corral, I'm sure, watering and feeding the mules and stuff. And he saw her standing on a rock about 50 yards south of the trail that she was taking. And Jane Doe's body, I made a note, Jane Doe's body was found about 14 miles from where Stacey was last seen. But Stacy was 14, so I'm thinking it could be her remains because a 14-year-old has a lot of energy. And who knows, she saw a deer, she chased the deer through the woods, she saw a wild turkey, you know. Um, Someone grabbed her and dragged her that far, there's no telling what may have happened. As far as that goes, an animal may have carried her remains to the point where her remains were found, those remains there. So I think that this could very possibly be Stacy Ann Aris. I could be wrong about that. I'm no expert. And so now I'm going to discuss those three cases which I have previously discussed. The third one I was planning to discuss this week, actually. I was looking at the names I had written down, and I was like, I want to go ahead and cover this one. And then that turns out to be the last case. Actually, realistically, the earliest case, the oldest one of a missing person in the national parks, and there has recently come to be quite a bit of information on it. So I'm actually going to cover that one next week when I do those cases, because it will be the last one I talk about next week. So I'm only going to do those 7 cases next week. I will not, if they find out all sorts of stuff about Brian Laundrie between now and then, I'm going to wait to report on that because I want to do this. And also, my son brought up, my oldest son, I can record these videos because I'm trying to do them at 11 a.m. every Monday. And my grandson ends up needing to eat around then, or I have to take the dogs out, or I'll lose track of time. So one thing I need to do, I guess, is set an alarm for like 10:40 a.m. every Monday so that I can be like, oh yeah, I need to get this stuff typed up and start making my video. But he brought up that I can pre-record it, so I'm thinking about maybe trying to record the videos sometime between Sunday morning and Monday morning and then airing them. So I might not be doing them live anymore, just to let you all know that. But yes, I'm actually only going to discuss 2 this week of previous cases that I discussed that I found information on, which was unknown to me before now. And I am going to mention this from when I last looked, which was maybe an hour or 2 before I started doing this video. There are currently no updates that I found concerning the Gabby Petito or Brian Laundrie cases. And so far, there's nothing new concerning Crystal Turner Beck and Kylan Schulte's case. I did, however, find a little bit of new information concerning Josue Calderon's case. Not much, but I am going to remind you guys of some of the information that I have already discussed concerning him also. So Josue Calderon's family spoke to a news station for the first time since his body was found October 9th. That does not mean, I was thinking that it was saying that that they had never spoke to the media, but they have actually spoke to the media before, and they pretty much said the same thing that they've been saying. But the station that they spoke to was ABC6, which I believe is in Providence, Rhode Island, which is where Josue and his family are from and where he lived at the time that his body was found. I believe their story. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I already said that part. Their story is from November 10th, 2021. And as I said, does not seem to tell much more about his case. Sorry, I still have a gnat problem, obviously. But I want to discuss this for his family, especially his children. Although there are 2 photos in the story of Josue, although there are 2 photos of Josue provided for this story that show him with vehicles, one is a car, the other is a motorcycle, his family still states that he did not currently own any vehicle. Josue's body is the one, you may recall, that many people speculated was likely Brian Laundrie's. His body was found on the Appalachian Trail along the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina at the Yadkin Valley Overlook. The mother of his children and his mother are the ones who spoke with the ABC6 reporter. They state, quote, Josue was a beloved father, son, and friend who grew up in Providence and attended Mount Pleasant High School, end quote. His family and friends last saw him in Providence, Rhode Island on October 5th, 2021. His body was found 4 days later, 800 miles away. Joshua's family told ABC6 they have, quote, no ties to North Carolina, end quote, and have, quote, no idea why or how Josue could have ended up there, end quote. As stated earlier, his family says he had no car when he went missing. His death was ruled a homicide because he had been stabbed to death, sadly. His is an active, ongoing case with no suspect or suspects as of yet. Anyone who has information they think or know could help investigators with this case should call or text the NPS National Park Service Investigative Services Branch tip line, which I put that information in the description for the video, put all those at the top this time. And the tip line's number is 888-653-0009, or you can email them at nps_isb@nps.gov. And as I said, this information is listed in the video description area. And I put the phone numbers and emails and website links at the top there for you all. You may have to copy and paste those links. I don't know for sure. I didn't look to see how they look. I suppose I could. No, I can't. Suppose I could scroll down and see them maybe, but no. So yeah, that's all I have on Josue's case. As I said, it's nothing really, really new, except the personal comments from his family members, and keeping his case fresh in people's minds, and if they have information, encouraging them to let the authorities know what they know about his case. So the last one that I'm going to discuss today is the case of James Pruitt. I found a significant amount of information on his that I did not see before. Unfortunately, I am thinking at this time, Mr. Pruitt has to most likely be dead, which is just sad. He was 70 years old. So James Pruitt is a cold case in the Rocky Mountain National Park. He was reported missing on February 28, 2019, so going on 3 years, coming this next February. At the time, he was 70 years old, a white male, 5 foot 6 inches tall, about 150 pounds, with blue eyes and brown/gray hair. He is one of the ones that I did not give a description of what he was wearing previously when he went missing, or the items that he had on him. So I'm going to give you that information, of course, at this time. He was believed to have been wearing a dark blue jacket, I thought this meant red and orange, but the other information that I found said red or orange beanie style hat, what most of us older people call a stocking hat, blue jeans, and carrying a small camera bag with a Nikon Coolpix 900 camera in it. He had left the Glacier Gorge parking lot to take a day hike to an unknown destination. His vehicle was found on March 3rd, 2019, and alerted the United States Park Rangers that he had failed to return from his day hike several days prior. Believe that would have been, well, I guess it was 3 days before. His family told the officials he had no intention of staying in the park overnight. They had not heard from him since around 10 a.m. on February 28th, 2019. Per a Facebook post, which is where I found the other information, which was made on March 15th, 2019, on the page for the Rocky Mountain National Park, Rangers had hoped to gain more information concerning James's plans on the day he disappeared, which I gather is part of how they found out that he was not planning to stay overnight in the lake. But I guess they were trying to figure out more about where he had planned to go and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like they did really find that out. They also asked for information from anyone who was in the Glacier Gorge and Bear Lakes. The Glacier Gorge and Bear Lake areas between February 28th and March 3rd, 2019, or who may have had contact with James Pruitt during his other hikes leading up to February 28, 2019. So I'm guessing that he had hiked in the Rocky Mountain National Park on previous occasions, like possibly earlier in February or something. But they were wanting to talk to people who might have encountered him when he took those hikes and might have known where he may have possibly been going that day. He was from, now this information is from the story that was linked to the Facebook post. He was from Etowah, I believe is how you pronounce it, Tennessee. And between February 28th and March 3rd, 2019, there were over 2 feet of snow that accumulated in the area of Glacier Gorge. I don't know for certain what days that snow fell. I don't know if it happened to start snowing on the 28th or not. So an active search for him took place from March the 3rd, when his vehicle was discovered, until March the 9th. So 6 days they searched actively for him. Search and rescue covered an area of about 15 square miles looking for him, which is a very large area. Not as large as it could be, but it's a very large area. This search included the Glacier Gorge drainage, the Loch Vale drainage, and the Glacier Creek drainage. They concentrated their search in the heavily forested areas near Bear Lake, the Glacier Gorge trailhead where his car was found, the Nymph Lake area, Chaos Creek area, Alberta Falls area, Lake Hayaha, Mario's Gully east of Lake Hayaha, the winter trails to Mills Lake, and the loch. In areas off of the snow-packed trails, the searchers often encountered chest-deep snow. So that's very, very deep snow. And the snow drifts, and this is part of why I'm saying that he most likely, especially going on 3 years after he went missing, he most likely unfortunately passed away while he was doing his day hike, or sometime, before he was able to be found. There were about 10 search teams involved in the search for James, including several dog teams. On March the 5th, 2019, a multi-mission aircraft, or MMA, from the state of Colorado helped with fixed wing aerial reconnaissance over Sky Pond, Lake Hayaha, Flat Top Mountain, and Bierstadt Lake, which means Beer State Lake, or possibly Bear. Anyway, Bierstadt Lake. German. They reported he may have also been wearing hiking boots that had micro spikes on them. So perhaps there was already snow in the area, or perhaps he did have knowledge that it was supposed to snow, and that's why he wore the hiking boots with the micro spikes on them, was to help him keep traction, to be able to not get injured, was what he was hoping for. But with that much snow, I'm sure it hadn't all fallen when he initially went missing, but these cases make me so sad sometimes. Anyone with information concerning James Pruitt's case should call the Rocky Mountain National Park at, and I put this number in the description toward the top as well, And that number is 970-586-1204. As always, if anyone finds an item, including remains, of course, they think may belong to him or another missing person, please leave the item or items in place where you found them. Note their location using coordinates. Take pictures and notify the Rocky Mountain National Park or the National Park Service. And as I said already, contact information for both of these is provided in the description section of this blog, and they're provided at the top of that. And sorry, this is lasting so long. It'd probably last shorter if I'd stop apologizing for it lasting so long, right? So the third case that I had planned to talk about, I didn't write down here, but it was that of Bobby Bizup, because I saw his name on my paper and I was like, I don't think I've talked about him before, which is, as I said, because his is the case that happened in 1958. So there has been a lot of information from the end of last year through the middle of 2021 that has come forward in his case. And his is the earliest missing persons cold case in national parks within the United States. So I will wait until next Monday to discuss his case and include that information then, because as I said, his is the first case. I'm counting backwards and I'm doing 7 cases. So his will be the last one I will discuss and I will include that information then. So I'm only doing those 7 cases then. Everyone have a great whatever time of night or day it is in your part of the world. Stay safe and stay positive. And if you have watched my entire video, as I mentioned previously and in my comment to the side, please subscribe, like my video, and feel free to make any comments that you would like.